Okay, good morning, everybody. Just making sure everybody can hear me okay. And we're waiting for a couple of more people to come on the live here. Sean, thanks for tuning in. Good to see you. Kelly and Luling. And Debbie, you're right. Prayers for everyone who's going to be affected by this. Mary Beth is checking in and from Metairie and is a nervous wreck. Well, what I'm going to try to do is give you some information this morning, guys, and hopefully at least allay some of your fears. Not that we're not going to have a hurricane, but give you some information that you're going to be able to act on. And Elizabeth says, when is the next track update? I have the next track update for you right now. It just came out 30 minutes ago, so this is going to be brand new information that we have just received. All right, so let's go ahead and begin with our update. And again, here is the brand new 10 o'clock advisory in from the Hurricane Center. And there are some changes on here. The first one that I want to point out, the winds have increased just a little bit. They're now at 65 miles per hour. The pressure is 996, but as I'll show you in a moment, we're taking a look at the hurricane hunters, and the pressure now looks like it's starting to drop, and it may be starting to drop quickly. I think this is going to be a hurricane maybe in the next few hours. The movement is not really unchanged. It's still northwest at 15. It might be moving just a little bit east of where they had the track going, but not anything that is too significant at this point in time. So let's go ahead and spool out the advisory. Again, this is the latest track and intensity forecast we just got from the National Hurricane Center. And indeed, by this evening, they have a Category 1 on the western tip of Cuba. I think it's going to be a hurricane before 7 p.m. But regardless, we're going to be looking at a hurricane entering the Gulf later on tonight. Now, everything is coming together in a bad way for this to be a very strong hurricane. In fact, by Saturday evening, this is 7 p.m., we have a Category 2 hurricane. And as you probably heard from earlier in Condor on the morning show, the forecast is now for a Category 3 at landfall. In fact, on this advisory, they've now increased the landfall intensity from 115 to 120 miles per hour. And the track is really not changed all that much. We're going to take a look at some of these computer models, but I must stress what we're looking at right here. This is showing a landfall in Terrebonne Parish. This line indicates this is well within the margin of error. We could still see a storm come in farther to the west, maybe into New Iberia and Lafayette, and we could still see a track correction to the east, say to Grand Isle and across the New Orleans area. All those solutions are in play this morning. It's Friday morning. We're about 48 to 60 hours from landfall, and you can still have a track error somewhere in the range of 40 to 60 miles, sometimes even a little bit more than that. But 60 miles in itself is enough to make a difference. So that's where the landfall forecast is right now. The second issue is, even if the landfall is a little farther to the west, we're still going to be on the east side of this system, and rain is going to be a big concern. So here's 7 p.m. Sunday, and here's 7 a.m. Monday near Baton Rouge. It's going to take 12 hours to go from Cocodrie to Baton Rouge. That is slow. We want to see a storm moving a lot faster than that, and it looks like it's not going to be a super fast mover once it moves inland. That's going to up the ante on any potential for severe flooding over South Mississippi and Southeast Louisiana. Then it does get a kick out by Tuesday morning and weakening over North Mississippi. All right, this just in as well. The Hurricane Watch has now been expanded inland to include Washington Parish, all of Tangipahoa. Baton Rouge is now under the Hurricane Watch as well. So the Hurricane Watch is basically covering all of South Louisiana. Theoretically, not Lake Charles. Lake Charles is under a tropical storm watch. And remember, on the Gulf Coast, Bay St. Louis and the Pass, extending to Biloxi, the Hurricane Watch is in effect there. Also, storm surge watches are in effect. Remember, the Hurricane Watch is for the preparation of hurricane force winds. The storm surge watch is for preparation of water rising more than 3 feet above ground level. We're going to have some storm surge information coming up for you in just a little bit, and I know at noon on Fox 8 we're going to have some updated information. What I will say right now is that based on the track of the storm, there is not a danger of over or major overtopping of levees inside the hurricane risk reduction system. If you live outside the levee protection areas, evacuation orders are underway. And so I have it scrolling at the bottom of the screen here. You need to do what your emergency management officials are advising. Obviously, I can't give details on every single bayou and every single inlet where people live. But if you don't have levee protection, you need to be considering the possibility of evacuating if you haven't been told to by now. And notice this shows you the extent. The storm surge warning extends as far east as Mobile Bay and as far to the west as Cameron along the southwest Louisiana coast. So the storm surge implications can extend very far from the center. The satellite picture, not one that I like to see this morning, but clearly Ida is getting stronger. It's beginning to develop an inner core, and that is the precursor to a hurricane. And so this is the Isle of Youth right here. It looks like the center may go over or just east of the Isle of Youth before crossing the western tip of Cuba. Let me go ahead and put on the latest plot from the Hurricane Center. So this is where the plot was from the Hurricane Center a few minutes ago, right there. And it looks like the center has moved to about right here. So it may be moving almost due north right now. I mean, we're getting down into details, but all of this can be important in the end. But what really is going to be important ultimately is the strength of the high pressure. And we're going to get to the steering currents in just a minute. Here are the hurricane hunters. They're flying around in there right now. And well, look at this. They're kind of flying this zigzag pattern right in here. There's been a lot of lightning around it, but they did find a pressure. Let's see if I can back this up just a little bit here. And when they went through, let's back it up. See right there, there's a pressure of 991 millibars that they found. And remember on the advisory that it was 996. So the pressure has dropped 5 or 6 millibars at least just in the last 2 or 3 hours. That's not a good sign as far as a strengthening hurricane is concerned. We don't want to see that. That definitely indicates that a hurricane is likely strengthening. All right, what we're showing now is the possibility of tropical storm force winds. All right, it's a little early to show hurricane force winds. We'll be doing that a little bit later on this morning. But let's take a look here at these numbers. Remember, this is the chance of sustained winds of 39 miles per hour or greater. Once we get the 40-mile-per-hour winds sustained, it becomes difficult for emergency vehicles to operate. It becomes unsafe for people to be outside. And with numbers like this, this is telling us at a minimum, based on this track, all of southeast Louisiana, and let's come in a little bit tighter here, is going to have to prepare at minimum for tropical storm conditions. All right. Obviously, the closer you are to the center line here and just to the east, then that's when we're going to have to talk about hurricane conditions. But there you can see the current track and the landfall track from the National Hurricane Center. Let's talk about computer models. All right, because everybody's looking at those. I put the cone on with the computer models, and I mean they are right on top of each other. All right, so here's. Let's see, we'll let the cone spool out. So that's the edge of the cone right there. You see the white lines? And then the colored lines in between here are the various spaghetti models showing up. You see the black line? It's kind of buried right there. I need to move it actually to the top. I'll do that afterwards. So on later updates, you guys can see. But that's called the consensus model. And a lot of times the Hurricane Center is going to base the center line on the consensus model. Now the consensus model has shifted west. They didn't shift their track as far to the west as what we're seeing here, but a lot of the guidance is just a little bit farther to the west. Now, what does that mean? Not much. Because right now, remember, we're 48 to 60 hours from landfall, and we could see the track correct even farther to the west, which would be bad for South Louisiana, but better for us, or it could correct theoretically a little bit to the east. But either way, we're going to be on the east side of this system. Now, I saw a comment go by a minute ago. People said, what about the west bank of Jefferson Parish? Right now, there's not a scenario where we need to call for an evacuation due to levee overtopping on the east bank or the west bank. So if that's what your question was pertaining to, that's what we're talking about. But again, these situations could be changing throughout the day, and that's why you're going to have to stay on Fox 8 and, of course, listen to your emergency management officials. This is a changeable situation, and it is one that we're concerned about, especially as I show you in a moment, the steering currents and also the profile in the Gulf. These are additional computer models run off the American model, the GFS ensembles. Again, all of them very tightly clustered in the Terrebonne Parish, St. Mary Parish area. All of that a bad track for Southeast Louisiana, both from a flooding rain, a strong wind aspect, and also one concerning storm surge. Now, here's the player that's on the field right now, guys. This is going to come down to the wire. And this is what we've been looking at. I'm looking at some of the new data coming in this morning, trying to analyze how strong is this high pressure? How far west is this high pressure going to build? And that's going to determine how far west or how far east this storm ends up making landfall. Let's go ahead and put our steering currents in motion. Now you see the high pressure. Did you see that? It came from the Atlantic and it moved into the Carolinas. Here's on Saturday. That means that Ida is going to keep moving to the northwest. But boy, it gets really tricky here at the end. This is not particularly the strong portion of the high pressure, but when you start getting into these lines here over Mississippi and Alabama, that's when you really can get some major steering impacts with the storm. And if we stop it here early on Sunday, the question is, when is the turn going to be? Is this portion of the high going to be just enough to the west that it's going to push it a little further west? Or are we going to start to see it weaken? If we have a much stronger hurricane, we could see this high potentially weaken a little bit more. And that's why I don't think we're seeing a huge change to the track from the National Hurricane Center as far as the track is concerned. So it's all about that high. And again, as the strong hurricane moves inland, it will continue to weaken the high, and then eventually the storm will move off to the north. Rapid intensification. Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Laura last year, even Grace last week in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. We are continuing to see this trend of storms blowing up right at the coast. And I'm not saying this to concern you or freak you out. I'm just giving the facts to you as we've seen them happen. And even the National Hurricane Center is saying that conditions are ideal for this storm to potentially get stronger than what we're indicating. And so that's why the messaging we've sent since the last couple of days is that we're going to have to prepare for a slightly stronger storm. Now, what are you looking at here? Water temperatures compared to average, okay? And look where the storm is heading. It's heading for the loop current, which is in this area, and the water temperatures are really, really hot right off the Louisiana coast. And so that is the reason for this storm to get stronger as it moves in the central Gulf. It's going to have perfect conditions in the ocean. The upper air atmosphere wind shear is not going to be significant, and there's no reason why this storm shouldn't strengthen. So that was the water temperature at the surface. Now I'm showing you the ocean heat content. And that's not only measuring the water at the surface, but it's measuring the depth of the water and how hot it is, how deep that hot water goes in the ocean. And the deeper that hot water is, the more the hurricane is going to be able to draw from and potentially strengthen. So here we are in the northwestern Caribbean Sea, where the ocean heat content is always some of the highest that we see in the western Atlantic. And the loop current is quite prominent this year, and we can see it right there. You see that little yellow and orange area? That's the loop that eventually feeds back into the Florida Straits and connects with the Gulf Stream. And look at that. Ida is going right over that loop current northwest, and into those hot surface water temperatures off the Louisiana coast, all of which does argue for a strong hurricane to be moving in. As far as rain potential goes, you could put about any number you want on it, but the most important thing for us to focus on right now is one, it's going to be moving slow. Remember, it's going to be down here at 7 p.m. on Sunday, and then 7 a.m. Monday, 12 hours later, it's at Baton Rouge. 12 hours, and we're going to have storms to the east. Widespread flooding is going to be likely. Widespread 5 to 10 inch rains. It's likely going to exceed that. So that's why right now, barring a shift in the center line closer to New Orleans, if the center line stays here or even a little bit farther west, our biggest concerns are widespread flooding from rainwater and then also power outage because of extended winds, especially tropical storm force winds that could blow for quite a long time. Now, you hear me talk about the Fox 8 weather app a lot and our news apps. Last year during Zeta, 90% of the city lost power. But we still stream our newscasts over the internet. So if you lose power and you have portable battery chargers to keep your tablet and your phone going, last resort, you can use your phone to charge your car. Just don't leave your car running in the garage, obviously, with the garage door shut. And if there's major wind blowing, you're not going to be able to do that. So that's not ideal. But you will be able to continuously watch our coverage. If all else fails, we are going to be on our iHeart radio station partners. They will be taking our broadcast feed during the landfall. So check with your iHeart radio station that you listen to. Sometimes it varies on what stations they carry us on, but nevertheless, we'll give you that information when we know it. We're going to be communicating with iHeart Radio a little later on today. I did have a lot of people tell me that they were listening to us over the radio when they lost all power. It was like back to the old days. But again, you have to be able to have a way to have your device charged unless you are old-fashioned and you have a transistor radio, which not many people have these days in this modern age. So once again, what I want to do is if you're just tuning in, let's go back to the top here. And let me see here. Let's go back to the advisory. This was the latest from the National Hurricane Center. I do know on Fox 8 at 11:15, so in about 20 or 25 minutes, we're going to get a major update from the city of New Orleans. But the latest update had a 65-mile-per-hour storm. Looking at the latest data from the National Hurricane Center and from the Hurricane Hunters, it looks like it may be very close to becoming a hurricane within the next couple of hours. And again, the track brings it into the Gulf on Saturday, strengthening from a Category 2 to a Category 3 storm. Sunday morning, a 120-mile-per-hour storm off the coast. And there you have the landfall sometime around Sunday, 7 p.m. And again, what I want to stress is that that cone continues to be fairly wide at this point. We could still see shifts far to the west, and we could still see a shift back to the east, but most of the models are clustering between Lafayette and Houma. We're not seeing much of a change there as far as the track goes. All right, stay safe, everybody. We've got some heavy rainstorms out there today, unfortunately, but do what you can today to begin to protect your property, get your supplies together, and be ready to ride out the storm on Sunday and Monday. But we have all day today, and we should have all day tomorrow to begin to prepare. I'm Chief Meteorologist David Bernard. Again, you can stay with Fox 8, your weather authority, for the very latest. We'll have continuing coverage throughout the day. Fox 8 News at noon is coming up, and I imagine we're going to be carrying live, again, the news conference from Orleans Parish, and I believe Cynthia Shang in Jefferson Parish either has an update going on right now or is going to very shortly. I will see you a little bit later on today on the TV.